Hello everyone, please press subscribe, press follow, press the bell so you don't miss any new clips. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Author by Heavenly Overlord. Translator by NYOIBO Studio. Audio novels by Novelist. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 116. The Fallen Star Contest. Su Yu's despondent eyes suddenly lit up. Swish. Turning his body, Su Yu forgot his sense of propriety and he urgently grabbed Yunyan's fragrant shoulders. Quick, say it. Yunyan slightly whimpered in pain. You're hurting me. Oh, I'm sorry, Yunyan. That was disrespectful of me. Su Yu just realized he had forgotten his manners and hurriedly let go of her. His apologetic eyes peered anxiously into Yunyan's beautiful gaze, compelling her to go on. Yunyan rubbed her sore shoulders and felt a hidden bitterness in her heart. It was more like envy. Su Yu would go to this extent for his beloved betrothed. She wondered about her fiancé inside the inner sanctum. A hint of sadness and helplessness bubbled up within her heart. The way is simple, said Yunyan. Just after you left, the second elder gave us three, who were unwilling to leave the faction, a chance. That is to participate in tomorrow's Fallen Star Contest. Fallen Star Contest? Su Yu wondered. Yunyan nodded. Yes. It is the annual grand competition outside of the sanctum. It is usually held a month after the recruitment assessment, which happens to be tomorrow. The Fallen Star Contest will gather all the outstanding talent outside of the sanctum and hold a competition to learn from one another. Whoever can trigger the icy pearl on the icy azure lake to vibrate, will successfully obtain the qualifications for the inner sanctum. This way, we can avoid expulsion. Then, you can have your chance to meet your betrothed, Yunyan slowly recounted. Yunyan saw the light in Su Yu's eyes change from grief and anger to resolve, making it hard for her to look straight at him. However, the hope is very faint. It's almost next to nothing. Yunyan could not bear to shock Su Yu. The last time someone passed the Fallen Star Contest was a century ago, and that was Clan Master Shi. With heaps of resources provided by Han Ji, she finally broke through the shackles and went from outside of the sanctum into the inner sanctum. After her, none of the disciples outside of the sanctum have passed. Yunyan's charming face dimmed. You will need at least the martial power of a second-level peak to trigger the icy pearl. How many disciples outside of the sanctum can cultivate to the second-level peak? Although the second elder gave the three of them an opportunity, the chance was so slim that it was almost next to nothing. What startled Yunyan was that Su Yu did not seem disappointed, worried, or hesitant. His eyes had a look of determination and they dazzled her even more. Su Yu, don't you feel the despair? Yunyan found it hard to understand the look in Su Yu's eyes. Su Yu looked up to the sky, his deep eyes underneath his silver hair and the corners of his mouth curled up as he smiled. The world's saddest person is not the one with faint hope, but the one without any hope. Give me a glimmer of hope and I, Su Yu, will create a miracle. Su Yu tightly clenched his fists and his eyes shone with unprecedented brightness. He was not afraid low chances, he was only afraid of hopelessness. A glimmer of hope could create a miracle. Yunyan's lovely figure slightly shuddered as her heart was shaken. As she stared at Su Yu, she suddenly felt that his stature was exceptionally tall. She felt as if the boundless magnificence of his unwillingness to be shackled to his fate, his rising in defiance of the natural order, and his imposing will to rip apart heaven and earth, was flooding around Su Yu. A hint of admiration, a tinge of respect, and a whisper of shame and inferiority, all of those feelings mingled within her heart. The reason Su Yu was so dazzling, charismatic, and outstanding was not that he was handsome and accomplished. It was not his extraordinary ability, but his incomparably defiant nature. He'd gone up against mountains and rivers of problems, he'd had a lifetime of trials and hardships. He'd faced untold dangers and difficulties in life, but Su Yu was still able to rise amid adversity. Yunyan gazed at him, her young lady's heart was gently swayed. She stared only for a moment before she finally restrained herself. She knew that she was attracted to Su Yu's determination. It was only a momentary favorable impression and nothing more. But, If she continued to be attracted to his strikingly defiant will, she may risk legitimately falling for him. I have a fiancé, I mustn't, Yunyan thought to herself, and the ripple in her heart was quickly calmed. When she looked again at Su Yu, her expression was clear, and her beautiful eyes brimmed with a sincere wish. Su Yu, I hope you are able to fulfill your wish in tomorrow's contest. Su Yu was grateful. What about you? Yunyan smiled sadly. My family has provided me with an alternative course of action. You don't have to worry about me. With these words, she gracefully turned around and left by herself. She did not have Su Yu's will and she lacked Su Yu's ability even more. She had no hope of winning the contest. She entered the Lixian faction for one purpose, was it to seek a legacy-level cultivation technique for her family clan. Su Yu smoothed out the 5 Dragon Blaze manual tucked inside his sleeve pocket and wondered if it would be suitable for her. The fire-based legacy-level cultivation technique, cultivated by the silver-robed guards of the Empire of Darkness, was not suitable for Su Yu. He might as well give it to Yunyan as a present and consider it a parting gift. He could repay her kindness, as well as repay her for the times she saved him. But now was not the time. By giving a volume of legacy-level cultivation technique, which none of the 100 vassal clans had, to Yunyan in public, she might not live to return to her family. In this place, besides them, there was also the black armored guard in front of the iron bridge, as well as 2 or 3 random people around. It would be unwise to take it out here. He needed to look for an opportune time with no one around, and then quietly slip it to Yunyan. Returning to the temporary lodgings outside of the sanctum, Su Yu went into seclusion to meditate. He took out that entirely dark blue piece of medium-grade marrow cleansing elixir. Its potency was 100 times stronger than the low-grade marrow cleansing elixir. At tomorrow's Fallen Star contest, there are going to be countless of experts from outside of the sanctum who have years of experience. It's essential for me to upgrade my ability, even if it is only a little bit. Su Yu opened his mouth to swallow. In a flash, its powerful potency cleansed all his limbs and bones. A viscous liquid oozed from Su Yu's pores, like mercury flowing out swiftly from the earth. A feeling of lightness and ease emerged from his core. It felt like a heavy burden was shed, he felt lighter from the inside out. Not only did his flesh feel light as feathers, his soul was free from its shackles, the feeling was sublime. His entire temperament was once again transmuted like a celestial immortal. H's physiological boundary was pushed a step further, he was becoming less like a mortal each time. It was 100 times more potent than a low-grade marrow cleansing elixir. Its effect was fierce and powerful, and it had exceeded his imagination. After the cleansing, with more than half of the impurities in his physical body dispelled, he became clear, like an unpolished jade. His speed of energy absorption was greater. On that day, the immense amount of chill that he had absorbed at the Divine Ice Hall was too much. A large part of it was difficult for his physical body to assimilate, so it had settled within him. Now, after his physical body was cleansed, he began to voluntarily assimilate this collected cold energy. In addition to the medium-grade marrow cleansing elixir, his body carried a powerful energy. The fusion of these two was like 10,000 stampeding horses galloping through Su Yu's body. Su Yu's cultivation felt just like a powerful current rushing forth, and he easily stepped across the threshold of a first-level upper-tier Holy King to first-level peak Holy King. After several hours, he finally stopped right before he reached first-level peak Holy King. Just a sliver more and he could break through the barrier. The elixir definitely deserved to be called a medium-grade marrow cleansing elixir. Its effect was powerful and beyond compare. Unfortunately, to obtain one was not easy and its effects were short-lived. As he was pressed for time, Su Yu quickly entered the state of time acceleration by 200 times so as to comprehend all that he had learned. Early the next morning, Su Yu slowly opened his eyes, his expression a bit helpless. When he had taken the opportunity to absorb the chill from the frozen seal, Su Yu seized the time to comprehend glazed ice flame, icy divine wings, and sigh of ice. But, Only the comprehension of icy divine wings movement technique was relatively easy to break through to the stage 1 lower class, where he cultivated the flying wings. The progress of glazed ice flame and Sigh of Ice was great, but he was still a fine line away from stage 1 lower class. Glazed ice flame was known as one of the finest legacy-level cultivation techniques. Its power was unpredictable. If he had comprehended it to the stage 1 lower class, the power would be extraordinary. If Sigh of Ice had been comprehended to the stage 1 lower class, his spiritual energy capacity would be 30% more than others of the same realm. His moves would be stronger by 30%. It was very impressive. Unfortunately, he was still a fine line away from the stage 1 lower class for those two. If I can chance upon another strange cold object in the world, or perhaps, another 2 volumes of legacy-level cultivation techniques, I can break through to reach a new level for both. Su Yu murmured. Finally, he had nearly reached top class for Purple Star Thunderbolt. His Great Holy Decree, under a long period of comprehension, also showed signs of transmuting to a new level. Su Yu felt he was at a turning point. Once his moves reached the next level, he would be reborn. Thump. The faintly discernible sound of a bell came from the distance. The Fallen Star contest was about to begin. With his right fist clenched, Su Yu cast a look toward that mysterious inner sanctum and firmly said, "Xianna. Wait for me." He was going to require the qualifications needed to enter the inner sanctum, take Xianna away, and never leave her again. Swish. He darted out and went to the Fallen Star contest arena. The contest was convened in the chilly star of the 17 Fallen Stars. As far as the eye could see, human figures were seen interlacing across the sky. The disciples outside of the sanctum from all 17 Fallen Stars had flocked towards the chilly star. The annual Fallen Star contest was about to begin. Su Yu flew toward it and landed in front of a vast and magnificent arena capable of holding 10,000 people. At the entrance, there was a graceful, beautiful figure anxiously waiting. Her charming face looked a little lost. She looked like a lonely figure out of place in the bustling crowd. Though people were stunned by her beauty, no one stopped for her. "Yunyan, are you waiting for someone?" Su Yu came over and asked with deep concern. Yunyan lifted her gaze and managed a weak smile. "I'm waiting for Li Ji. He's my fiancé. I sent him a message yesterday." Su Yu slightly frowned. The contest was about to begin and, once it started, the arena would close. Any outsider would not be able to enter. "Come on, he's not coming." Yunyan's eyes dimmed, and she entered the arena alongside Su Yu. Bang! With the sealing of the arena's entrance, the contest had officially started. Inside the arena, disciples from outside of the sanctum numbered at more than 3,000. Many of the lowest-ranking disciples were level 8, level 9, and half-holy kings of the martial path. There were also many strong individuals of the Holy King realm, and Su Yu even discovered the presence of second-level Holy Kings. Yunyan was a member of a family clan, so she was well-informed and knowledgeable. The Fallen Star contest is divided into 3 phases. The first competition will produce the top 100 contenders. Next, they will battle until there is only 9 left. And the final competition will be the 9 dragons seize the pearl, she explained to Su Yu. Whoever seizes the pearl will be the first, and, in addition to that, he must trigger the icy pearl to vibrate. Then he will have the opportunity to transform his life. He will reach heaven in a single leap and become an inner sanctum disciple. He will have unlimited use of endless resources and there will be no limit to his future achievements. Su Yu nodded. There were 3,000 people who were tussling to be among the top 100 contenders. The top 100 contenders would compete to be the top 9 contenders. And finally, the top 9 contenders would vie for the supreme position. If they could trigger the icy pearl to vibrate, they could become an inner sanctum disciple. This Fallen Star contest has many powerful contestants. The 3 heavenly kings from outside of the sanctum will be here. Each of them is a strong second-level holy king. The ranked first, Zhao Waksi, who recently reached second-level peak Holy King level, is a once-in-100 years talent from outside of the sanctum. At that time, he almost entered the inner sanctum. Now there is a great possibility of him entering the inner sanctum this year. In addition to these people, there will also be newly accepted disciples from the inner sanctum at the Fallen Star contest. They are the real talents who were similarly used as bait like us. They will be participating together in the contest, and they are the #1 students of the 100 vassal clans, Sun Tianyang of the Sun family clan and the ranked 2nd Yuan Hu of the Yuan family. They have already been recruited in advance as the elders' disciples, which means they are inner sanctum disciples. They are not required to compete for inner sanctum qualifications. They're competing because, firstly, it's a rare opportunity to hone their skills with actual combat. Secondly, they will set the benchmark for disciples from outside of the sanctum, so they can gauge their disparity with the inner sanctum disciples. Su Yu understood Yuan, who was that short and stout young man who maintained order alongside Lu Guang on the day of the recruitment assessment. He was a 14-year-old 2nd-level holy king and was quite exceptional. He had said on that day that if Su Yu were to enter the Lixian faction, he would make sure Su Yu would never live in peace. He would never have thought that he would compete against him in the same arena at the Fallen Star contest. You better hope that you don't encounter me. Otherwise, I, who you called an ant, will give you a great surprise, Su Yu secretly murmured. Dong. The sound of the bell came. The Fallen Star contest was the fateful battle that determined whether the 3,000 disciples would be able to enter the sanctum and be reborn. It was a battle of destiny that would decide the fate of Su Yu and Xiana, and it had finally begun. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 117, The Three Heavenly Kings. All competitors are to bring their jade identity cards and come forward to receive a contest number plate in accordance with your 100 vassal clans ranking. Announced the umpire on the central arena. Yun Yan took a deep breath. She was slightly nervous, helpless, and forlorn. Slowly getting up, Yun Yan bid Su Yu farewell and forced herself to smile. I hope you see your betrothed and send my regards to her. Feeling the sorrow in Yun Yan's heart, Su Yu nodded. After the contest, regardless of the outcome, please wait a moment for me. I have something I would like to give to you alone. Slightly surprised, the tension in Yun Yan's heart eased. She gently smiled and left gracefully. Brother Su, it's the Li family's turn to draw the number plates. The 3 juniors from the Li family, reverently and respectfully prompted Su Yu. Su Yu used the Li family's name to enter the Lixian faction, so naturally, he would be with them to draw a number plate. Lightly sucking in his breath, Su Yu stepped forward and received the number plate, 111. The 100-strong match will start now, and in accordance with the given number plates, all 3,000 people will be divided into 100 groups. The number plates are assigned randomly. Su Yu was assigned to the 10th group. The 100-strong match rules are as follows. You will challenge each other within the group and volunteer to go to the arena to accept any challenge. If no one dares to fight you, you will be ranked first in the group and advance to the 100-strong stage. Though this rule was slightly unfair, it had the element of luck. If within the group, there were extremely fearsome, strong contestants, like the 3 heavenly kings from outside of the sanctum, then the rest of the contestants would have no hope of being in the top 100 and could only swallow their pride. Still, this would save a lot of time. The challenge begins now for the first group. In the first group, there were 30 people who were ready for the match at the preparation platform. Swish. With a smile on his lips, a young man with a proud expression darted to the arena, cupped his fists, and proclaimed, "Everyone, if there is anyone who wants to overrule me, Ling Feng, come forward and fight." Ling Feng was a strong first-level peak holy king. Outside of the sanctum, preceded only by the 3 heavenly kings, he was placed one of the top 10 martial artists. Naturally, he was qualified to defend the arena. However, after he had spoken, the crowd silently looked him up and down strangely. Ling Feng felt apprehensive and re-examined the group he was placed with. Suddenly, a figure made him jump and his face turned ashen. The first heavenly king from outside of the sanctum, Zhao Waksi. Behind the crowd of people was a 20-something-year-old young man with an ordinary face. He sat cross-legged and was quiet. He wore plain green clothes. Of a mild temperament, he gave off an amiable feeling to others. Slowly opening his eyes, Zhao Waksi softly chuckled. This opportunity is hard to come by. You should learn from each other. I will go to the arena later. Ling Feng's face was pale and he was quiet for a moment. Then he cupped his fists, bowed, and dejectedly left the arena. I forfeit. Ling Feng did not have any courage when faced with the first Heavenly King. The difference between a second-level peak Holy King and Ling Feng was like that between clouds and mud. Ling Feng could use all his power and it would still be difficult to leave a single scratch. The arena was silent for a moment, with no one else stepping forward. Everyone looked powerless, pained, and aggrieved. For them to encounter Zhao Waksi after they had waited for the annual Fallen Star contest, it was so unfortunate. After a short silence, Zhao Waksi gently sighed and slowly stepped into the arena. Is anyone willing to challenge me, Zhao Waksi, to a match? All 29 men lowered their heads, along with everyone else in the crowd. Zhao Waksi's eyes had a flash of disappointment. He was a bit lonely, wishing for at least a single opponent. He was a lonely king outside of the sanctum. There were more than 3,000 people here, but no opponent for him. After the umpire's announcement, Zhao Waksi bleakly walked off the arena. And so the first group was quickly finished. Zhao Waksi, the first Heavenly King from outside of the sanctum, was the supreme king whom 3,000 people looked up to. He was the most promising disciple from outside of the sanctum in the last century. All the following few matches took about an hour for each fight. At the fifth match, one person took the lead and jumped up from the fifth group. Is there anyone who wants to challenge me, Zhaolongyang, to a match? He was about 20 years old and wore tight black clothes. His dark skin and rough features gave off an air of malice. His cultivation base had reached a fearsome second-level upper-tier Holy King level. He was the second Heavenly King from outside of the sanctum, Zhaolongyang. At this moment, his grin looked somewhat sinister. It was quiet under the arena and everyone in his group looked tense, even fearful. They revered Zhao Waksi and feared Zhaolongyang. Zhaolongyang was vicious with his blows. Fighting with him would result in serious injuries. So, no one took up his challenge. What a bunch of useless trash. Zhaolongyang smirked and left the arena. The umpire declared Zhaolongyang the winner. The next match, an 18-year-old youth of a tall build with an aloof expression leaped onto the arena. Handsome and callous, he stood with his arms folded. His eyes were icy, causing people to shudder. His cultivation base had reached second-level lower-tier Holy King. This person was the third Heavenly King, Jiangming. Anyone want to fight me? Under the arena, an unfortunate first-level peak Holy King stepped up to the arena. I'm Zhao Lin and I'm willing to fight with you. Zhao Lin was a rare strong female contestant from outside of the sanctum. After leaping into the arena, she immediately made her move. Golden flower finger. Zhao Lin's jade-like hand lightly pointed, and a dazzling 5-pointed golden light illuminated everyone. Many spectators closed their eyes. Zhao Lin hid within the golden light. It was difficult to distinguish her figure. Swish. Suddenly, her pale hand abruptly shot out from the golden light and struck Jiangming's body. Jiangming could not open his eyes under the golden glare. So, Jiangming was unable to guard against her silent palm. Ah! A miserable shriek came from within the golden light. Zhao Lin's delicate body flew back as if she had been electrocuted. Jiangming's shoulders had only given a shake just now, and Zhao Lin was jolted back. You dare show your incompetence with such paltry skill? Jiangming opened his eyes, icily arrogant. Who else? Jiangming scanned the entire crowd, but there was no one else to fight. It was another speedy match. The many group matches that followed were remarkable, but not as breathtaking. Even in the 10th match, Su Yu's group, there was no other Holy King apart from Su Yu. Dashing toward the arena, Su Yu gave off the air of a Holy King. He looked around at the other 29 people. If there is any challenger, please be quick and let's get this over with. He was itching to get on with it and fight with the strongest contestant of the Fallen Star contest so that he could enter the inner sanctum and take Xuanhuan away. In front of the arena, the disciples from outside of the sanctum found him unfamiliar. No one knew this 14-year-old first-level Holy King. Lu Bao, will give it a go. A half-Holy King leaped onto the arena. About 25 years old, he looked fierce and severe. He was full of killing intent. Lu Bao, he challenged a first-level Holy King before and did not struggle. He hunts in the mountains all year round and has ample experience in actual combat. Many new Holy Kings find it difficult to deal with him. Lightly licking his lips, Lu Bao secretly thought about whether he could beat this young Holy King. Even if it was hard to fight his way into the top 9, he could still enter the top 100, and he could inevitably rise to fame. Lu Bao was terse, blunt, swift, and violent. In the blink of an eye, he threw a punch at Su Yu's face. When he saw how slow Su Yu's movement was, his heart was overjoyed. As expected, he was not experienced in actual combat and was just a junior who had used elixirs to advance himself. However, Lu Bao's joy was short-lived. A strand of Su Yu's silver hair drifted forward and lightly touched his fist, which instantly turned into ice. The ice immediately spread to his entire body and turned him into an ice sculpture. Su Yu never made a move from start to finish. Is there anyone else? Su Yu indifferently scanned the remaining 28 people. Under the arena, there was a stunned silence. This Holy King was powerful. Without a doubt, Su Yu advanced to the top 100. The few who had noticed this match were envious and jealous. Especially the defeated first-level peak Holy Kings. It's just pure luck, no big deal. If it were me, I would be able to fight my way into the top 100 too. Though Su Yu quickly ended the fight, he did not have a breathtaking win. On the contrary, he was despised even more. The next 20 matches were ordinary and mediocre. Contrary to what one might expect, it was the lucky ones who made the spectators felt indignant and resentful. Wu Pangyun's opponent was only a first-level lower-tier Holy King, who he easily defeated. Yun Yan's situation was similar to Su Yu's. There was no Holy King in her group. The 100-strong competition was completed. Besides the 3 Heavenly Kings, the 3 extremely lucky, unfamiliar newbies were the focus of attention. The 10-strong competition starts now. A total of 102 contestants will be randomly divided into 9 groups. The number 1 contender will advance to the next round. The competition is a 2-defeat system. Each person is allowed 2 matches. If he loses once, he may challenge one more time. If he is defeated both times, then he's eliminated on the spot. This system used slightly more time but was fairer. Those people who had paid attention to Su Yu seemed amused. It seems like the luck of Su Yu and Wu Pangyun has run out. They are actually grouped with Jiang Ming of the 3 Heavenly Kings. It's better this way. What qualifications do they have to gain the glory of the 100 strong? Kick 'em out as soon as possible to show the standard and quality of the Fallen Star contest. Not anyone can make his mark as he wishes. On the arena, the first match is Jiang Ming versus Wu Pangyun. The umpire looked at the contestant's level of cultivation base, descending from the highest to lowest, in order to arrange a match. Many spectators could not help but cheer. It was interesting that the starting match was a Heavenly King against a lucky newbie. Wu Pangyun firmly swallowed and cursed darkly. He thought that he could fight his way into the top 9, but he had already encountered the 3 Heavenly Kings once he was in the top 100. Jiang Ming stood with his arms folded and an indifferent look in his eyes. Make your move. Your good fortune is all used up. Gnashing his teeth, Wu Pangyun suddenly struck. Moon-cracking palm, a deity-level cultivation technique of the top realm imbued the first-level upper-tier Holy King with spiritual energy. It was terrifying beyond compare. Jiang Ming stood motionless for a long time. He looked indifferent and his eyes never even registered Wu Pangyun. The expression in his eyes was very subtle and it exquisitely conveyed his condescending attitude. Boom! Wu Pangyun's palm loudly struck Jiang Ming in the chest. However, it was like Wu Pangyun had just struck a big rock. Pow! The rebounded force jolted Wu Pangyun's internal organs, and he puked up blood on the spot. Wu Pangyun is defeated, the umpire coldly declared. The spectators in the stands mocked and ridiculed him. Has he finally been exposed? Zhao Lin was already jolted back, he was foolish to attack. It'd be strange if he did not puke up blood. Amid the jeering sounds, Wu Pangyun felt ashamed. The second match is Jiang Ming versus Su Yu. Just as he was stepping down from the arena, Su Yu brushed past Wu Pangyun's shoulder and walked up to the arena. Because he was overly sensitive in addition to the rift between both men, Wu Pangyun felt Su Yu had given him a mocking glance when they had passed each other. Su Yu. Wu Pangyun snapped angrily as he stopped in his tracks and glared at Su Yu's back. Su Yu calmly turned around. What's the matter? He was puzzled when he saw Wu Pangyun's expression. When had he provoked Wu Pangyun? Su. Don't be too cocky. You and I are quite similar in our abilities. Since I've failed, how much better can you be? If you humiliate me now, aren't you afraid of being humiliated by others? Wu Pangyun snarled. Su Yu was slightly stumped, then he understood Wu Pangyun's suggestible mentality at this moment. His mouth slanted to a side and as he gave a sneer, useless thing. If you want my ridicule, I'll let you have it. Su Yu pretended to look like he had no choice in the matter as he turned and stepped onto the arena. You. Wu Pangyun's face turned pale and then turned a bright red. Very well. I'm going to see how you will end up next. Jiang Ming stood proudly with a patronizing look in his eyes. He did not even register Su Yu's figure. Another extremely lucky junior. Jiang Ming gently sighed helplessly. You all do not deserve to fight me, but what am I supposed to do? This is the arena. I, Jiang, can only make do. A deep loathing formed in his expression, so make your move. Let's get this over with quickly. It disgusted him even being in the same arena as someone like Su Yu, who seemed to have relied on luck to get this far. Let's get it over with quickly. Very well. I, Su, have the same idea. Su Yu looked on impassively, so, please make your move. Otherwise, you won't get the chance to do so. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 118. 9 Dragons seized the pearl. Everyone was startled. They never expected Su Yu to say such a thing. Jiang Ming's condescending look grew cold. You just said what I should have said. Only Jiang Ming, the Heavenly King from outside of the sanctum, was qualified to say those words. I don't wish to repeat myself. Let's quickly get this over with. Please, make your move. Su Yu was anxious. There were only 3 days left before Xianna was going to marry someone else. His heart ached. Jiang Ming was enraged. Such insolence. Windless wave. He unleashed a top realm of a deity-level cultivation movement technique. Iron Wolf 8 trigrams palm. He also used another assault technique, a top realm deity-level cultivation technique. His formidable power levels surged when he combined the two types of deity-level cultivation techniques and imbued them with his terrifying second-level lower-tier Holy King's spiritual energy. Whoosh! Jiang Ming's figure unexpectedly disappeared from the spot. When he re-emerged again in a flash, he was already within 10 feet of Su Yu and appeared to be swooping in. Jiang Ming scowled with loathing as he clapped both his palms. You need to pay for your shameless boasting. Get lost. Boom. Zhao Lin and Wu Pangyun had only just touched him, and they were thrown from the shock. Now, Jiang Ming was using all his strength. How terrible would his power be? The piercing cry of the howling wind filled the area. His ferocious punch struck Su Yu in the chest. However, Su Yu looked at ease as he calmly shot out his palm. A violet lotus, gentle and beautiful, spun calmly within it. After the unremarkable violet lotus exploded, a blast rumbled through the sky. Boom! That wave of energy was like an earth-splitting landslide. The thunderous noise stirred up the clouds. Dust flew everywhere. It was so loud that even the deaf could feel it. It was devastating. Everyone at the arena quietly watched the scene unfold, their sneers suddenly changing into looks of disbelief. When the dust dissipated, only a shadowy purple-clad silver-haired figure was left on the platform, confusing the guests. Jiangming, one of the three heavenly kings from outside of the sanctum, had vanished into the thin air. They had not seen Jiangming get shockingly struck, and they had not seen him fly back, off the platform. Where was Jiangming? Just as the spectators were feeling bewildered, they saw from the corner of their eyes a black object drop from the sky and crash onto the platform with a loud bang. Upon a closer look, they were shocked to see that it was Jiangming with his mouth full of blood. He had lost consciousness on the spot. His face was still frozen with a look of horror. Hiss! The spectators gasped. That one blow just now had unexpectedly blasted Jiangming into the sky. Jiangming did not faint during the fall, he had fainted from being unable to withstand that blow. Everyone was silent. Jiangming, one of the three heavenly kings, was crushingly defeated. Furthermore, he had lost to Suyu, who was an extremely lucky first-level holy king. It's a legacy-level cultivation technique. He has cultivated a legacy-level cultivation technique. Eventually, some shrewd spectator tremblingly voiced the alarming fact. What? A newbie has a legacy-level cultivation technique? The three heavenly kings from outside the sanctum do not even have the qualifications to cultivate those. That's right. I remember now, at the recruitment assessment the number one contestant could enter the depository of Buddhist scriptures to read through cultivation techniques. Could it be he took a peek at that time? Impossible. Within the depository of Buddhist scriptures, the thunder-based cultivation techniques are hidden away in the depths of the depository. How could he have reached that step? Everyone was shocked until the umpire coolly declared Suyu as the winner. Wu Pangyun turned deathly pale. He stared at Suyu with a look of horror. When had he become so formidable? Thinking back, he was confident that his ability had been equal to Suyu's. Now he could not help but flush with anger. Among the spectators, there was another person Suyu was familiar with. It was Xuanhuan, that terribly strong man of the dragon realm. He was considered supreme among the inner sanctum disciples of the Lixian faction. He was initially too lazy to watch the matches, but after hearing the activity from the arena, he decided to look. However, when he glanced over, his pupils suddenly shrank. Li Guang's disciple from Xuanhuan Island. Xuanhuan had already forgotten Suyu and even failed to recall his name. As far as he could remember, although his fighting power was great, this disciple of Li Guang was a worthless spirit. Nonetheless, he had suddenly appeared in the Lixian faction today and, furthermore, he had broken the shackles of the martial path to become a holy king. Since he was able to break through to the holy king level, he must be able to absorb spiritual energy, which was equal to having a spirit. But on that day of the spirit testing, why has he considered a worthless spirit? Xuanhuan was slightly stupefied, and then his eyes gradually narrowed. Li Guang, oh Li Guang. It seems like you really groomed this disciple. With this one match, Suyu became famous and there were no more rivals within his group. Once he had rightfully and properly obtained the first place in his group, all opinions were silenced. His one palm had defeated one of the three heavenly kings. It proved that Suyu's ability was uncommon. The rest of the group challenges gradually ended. This time, Yunyan's group had a first-level upper-tier holy king, and she was regrettably defeated. Based on the second elder's demand, she was unable to gain the qualification needed to enter the inner sanctum, and therefore she had lost the chance to remain in the faction. Furthermore, she had lost the opportunity to seek a legacy-level cultivation technique for her family. Yunyan suddenly wanted to cry as she bowed out sadly. She would gradually become an ordinary person who hurriedly lived through the rest of her life. As her beautiful eyes gazed at the purple-clad figure who resembled an invincible god of war, Yunyan's inner sorrow deepened. Why can't I be like him? Yunyan's slender fists were tightly clenched, her heart unwilling to let go. When she returned to the spectators' stand, she was quiet and dejected. The competition for the 9 strong spots had finally concluded. Suyu, a newcomer from outside the sanctum, had never even officially stayed for more than a day outside the sanctum, and he had already stormed into the top 9. It was dazzling and stunning. The 9 competitors stood side by side. The other 8 paid attention to Suyu, who was considered a dark horse. The first Heavenly King, Zhao Waksi, slightly revealed his fighting intent. It's indeed extraordinary that he has a legacy-level cultivation technique to bypass the ranks and fight with. But when his gaze turned and fell on a figure beside him, his fighting intent became like the ardent burning sun. Unfortunately, Sun Tianyang is still my formidable opponent for this match. The newly appointed disciples of the inner sanctum, Sun Tianyang and Yuan Hu, had participated in the 100-strong competition. It was only to be expected that they would storm into the top 9. Sun Tianyang's ability had reached the second-level peak Holy King, and he was an inner sanctum disciple. Although he had only been in the sanctum for a month, he was closely guided by the Great Elder, and his fighting power was somewhat a mystery. After all, among the 10 Great Elders, the Great Elder was ranked first. Any disciple who received his guidance must be extraordinary. Even in the 100 years of the faction, the only newly appointed elder was Elder Han Ji, once the disciple of the Great Elder. Now, Sun Tianyang was his disciple, so his aptitude must have been extraordinary. The short and stout Yuan Hu looked astonished. The Su Yu he remembered was merely a level 9 peak of the martial path. He was not even a half-holy king. That had not been that long ago, and he had reached the Holy King realm. Even Jiang Ming, who was defeated by Su Yu, was comparable to Yuan Hu in terms of their cultivation bases. Both of them were second-level lower-tier Holy Kings. Ranked second of the 3 Heavenly Kings, Zhaolongyang smirked mockingly. "Senior brother Yuan, it seems you are going to have some trouble. Su Wai is not weak." Yuan Hu's chubby face suddenly turned cold. "That piece of trash, Jiang Ming. How can he be mentioned on equal terms as me, of the inner sanctum? Who cares about Su Yu? I alone can put him down. Another thing." Yuan Hu turned his head to the side and looked disdainfully. "You're from outside of the sanctum and not even qualified to call me senior brother. And please do not speak to me, lest I be mistaken for a disciple from outside the sanctum." Zhaolongyang's smile stiffened and he turned red in the face. He was more than 20 years old and had been at the faction for more than 5 years. Yuan Hu was only 14 years old and had just entered the faction. Zhaolongyang had indeed lowered himself by calling him a senior brother and was guilty of trying to make friends with him by fawning and using flattery. But he did not expect Yuan Hu to be so unruly. He had exposed him publicly. Suppressing his anger, Zhaolongyang lightly chuckled. "I would like to see how long you, from the inner sanctum, can fight with Su Yu." Humph. Although he did not have Yuan Hu's qualification, he was very good at making discerning judgments from his many years of cultivation. He seemed to have reservations about Su Yu's match with Jiang Ming. The 9 Dragons to Seize the Pearl competition has officially started. The ultimate arena is open. The umpire announced and activated a mechanism. Crash. The central arena rumbled and shook. The platform was split into 2 down the center, and it moved aside like a giant manhole cover. Aha! A terrible chill poured out. The entire arena instantly became ice cold. Upon a closer look, there was an emerald green lake under the platform. The lake was quiet and bluish-green like bamboo in the spring, but it also looked like an emerald pearl. But the lake, for some reason, was bone-chillingly cold. The chill condensed the vapor in the air and produced waves of white cold fog which floated around the arena. In the blink of an eye, the arena resembled a paradise on earth, filled with drifting celestial mist. In addition to the cold, the spectators also clearly felt that the spiritual energy within the arena spike. Everyone excitedly seized the moment to cultivate in public. The 9 Dragons Seize the Pearl competition at the Icy Azure Lake is now open. Is it finally here? I've watched all the matches, and I was waiting just for this moment," said a lower-tier Holy King, who was greedily absorbing the rich spiritual energy. "If there comes a day when I can participate in the 9 Dragons Seize the Pearl competition, it will be good for me. It is said that above the Icy Azure Lake, the spiritual energy is richer and its intensity is 10 times stronger than that of the outside world. A day of cultivation there is equal to 10 days in the outside world." Many people who participated in the battles had waited just for this moment. Su Yu stood around the icy azure lake and immediately felt the rich spiritual energy blowing on his face. It was very strong. The closer he got to the icy azure lake's edge, the stronger the spiritual energy was. Would the spiritual energy be more intense if he was inside the icy azure lake? Above the bottomless icy lake, there was an artificial, three-layered bridge. The three-layered bridge was constructed from top to bottom. The closer it was to the water surface, the more intense the spiritual energy was. After discussing with your opponents, you can choose the most suitable bridge battlefield for you. Bear in mind, you must assess your capabilities and act accordingly. The chill below is extremely cold, so if your cultivation base is not up to scratch, you may freeze and die. In addition, if you accidentally fall into the lake, you will certainly perish. Therefore, you all must choose carefully. Especially at the bottom layer of the bridge, the faction will not be able to assist in time if you fall in, because the distance is too close to the lake. The bottom of the lake already has many disciples' skeletons and they have not been salvaged to this day. You will have to look out for yourselves. The 9 Dragons Seize the Pearl competition starts now. The first battle is Xuanhuan from the inner sanctum who will battle against Lin Hao from outside the sanctum. Besides the 3 heavenly kings, Lin Hao, a second-level lower-tier holy king, was ranked number 1 outside the sanctum. His ability was only slightly weaker than Jiang Ming. Swish. Due to caution, the 2 men chose to fight on the top layer of the bridge. The spiritual energy there was 4 times that of the outside world. It was even better to absorb the spiritual energy during battle. Make your move. Xuanhuan stood with his arms folded, his eyes looked contemptuous. Lin Hao, who was over 20 years old, was capable of facing Xuanhuan. But he felt no small amount of pressure. How powerful would an inner sanctum person be when he was of the same realm as him? Pale wolf's claw. Lin Hao growled, all his spiritual energy was concentrated into his move. His figure was like a pale wolf galloping forward, and his palm became claw-like. A cold, pale light emerged from his claws. It looked like an ice-cold blade. Aha! His claw attacked. The air burst with a howling sound, as if it was about to be ripped apart. Xuanhuan waited until the claws were right before him before he finally made his move. What a paltry trick! Xuanhuan coldly rebuked as he suddenly lifted his leg, dragon tail whip. Crackle. His leg moved swiftly and continuously like a swimming dragon's swaying tail. The air twitched and vibrated. A terrifying aura permeated the arena. Crack. Ah! A scream came. Lin Hao's fingers were shattered, his blood spraying everywhere. He wobbled and almost fell from the bridge. Lin Hao is defeated. The umpire declared right away. Lin Hao was defeated in 1 move. The gap between the inner sanctum and the outside was great. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the move, Dragon Tail Whip, had some degree of a legacy-level cultivation technique. Without a doubt, Xuanhuan had been cultivating a legacy-level cultivation technique and he had felt some true essence. There would be no chance to encounter a legacy-level cultivation technique, even for those who stayed outside of the sanctum for 10 years. Xuanhuan had just entered the inner sanctum for a month and he already had access. The difference in their power was disheartening. The next battle is Xuanhuan versus Su Yu. The umpire quickly announced. As Su Yu darted to the bridge, the strong spiritual energy rushed forth. It made him feel comfortable as it was mingled with the weak chill in the air. Xuanhuan stood with his arms folded and he coldly sneered, I didn't expect the tiny ant to come walking up to me now. Make your move. I have a tight schedule, Su Yu said calmly with a flat gaze. He pretended not to hear him. A hint of anger flashed across Xuanhuan's face and his viciousness surged forward, humph. The difference between a talent and an ant is huge. I'm from the inner sanctum, and you're still struggling outside the sanctum. Even if you have advanced by leaps and bounds, you're still that lowly pitiful creature underneath my feet. Su Yu's look darkened, you're so noisy. Get lost immediately if you don't dare to fight. You're not qualified to waste my time. Every second meant that he had one more bit of hope of taking Xian'er away. Xuanhuan was furious. Very well. Since you're looking to die, don't blame me for not giving you a chance. An ant will always be an ant. Even if you're standing, you still need to look up to me. Dragon Tail Whip. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 119. Who's the ant now? The air vibrated as Xuanhuan's leg moved rapidly. His second-level Holy King's powerful spiritual energy imbued his legacy-level cultivation technique, and his power was terrifying beyond imagination. The powerful gale tousled Su Yu's long hair, but it failed to disrupt his clear gaze. Ice and Thunder Feast. Unexpectedly, Su Yu did not use his stronger attack, Purple Star Thunderbolt. Instead, he used his slightly less powerful Holy Decree. However, his Holy Decree's power was relative. Now that it was imbued with spiritual energy, its power had reached new heights. Alternating violet and white light shot out from Su Yu like lightning. Bang! Boom! Thud! 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 The moment Xuanhuan's dragon tail whip was jolted back, sharp pangs of pain struck him and made his right leg tremble. During the violent collision, the two destructive ice and thunder-based cultivation techniques had simultaneously hit his right leg. Xuanhuan staggered back several steps, his eyes were wide with horror. He was incredulous. What is your holy decree? The power of a saint-grade holy decree would never reach such intensity. Su Yu's holy decree had already surpassed the saint-grade top realm, and it was transforming to a new level. As Li Guang had said on his deathbed, Su Yu's holy decree was unique. It had an inexplicable cadence. With a little sharpening, it would be amazing. How does it feel? You're from the inner sanctum and now you're trembling in front of me. Who's the ant now? Su Yu stood firmly and calmly. He had not used the more powerful Purple Star Thunderbolt. Instead, he had used his slightly weaker holy decree to defeat Xuanhuan. To Xuanhuan, it was an insult. Xuanhuan's face first turned pale before he flushed red. He stole a quick glance at the spectators and they had looks of derision. Before this, Xuanhuan had condescendingly called Su Yu an ant, and Su Yu had promptly beaten him. The contrasts made others sneer, especially Zhaolongyang, who stood on the sidelines with a mocking smile on his lips. Xuanhuan flaunted himself as someone from the inner sanctum and had looked down on people, and now he was finally forced to yield. Su Yu, don't be unruly and arrogant. Let's do this again. Xuanhuan was enraged and immediately made his move. As his right leg was injured, only his deity-level cultivation technique imbued with his spirit energy helped him cope. Iron Head Strike. With a growl, Xuanhuan's stout body slightly bent. His spiritual energy concentrated on his head as he unexpectedly changed into a bison and came charging at Su Yu. His whole person propelled forward with both of his legs exerting force. He was incredibly fast. In a blink of an eye, he shot towards Su Yu. With such a fast speed, a first-level Holy King had no chance to evade him. Whoosh! However, Xuanhuan charged into empty space. He stumbled and fell to the ground on the spot. A gasp of disbelief sounded among the spectators. Quickly, look, what is that? Such beautiful wings. They look like ice sculptures, like a ball of crystalline light. Extraordinary splendor shimmered in a young girl's eyes. The crowd looked over and saw a pair of bright icy wings had unfurled from Su Yu's back and soundlessly flapped, radiating a bright colorful rainbow under the sunlight. Seen from afar, it looked as if Su Yu was draped with multicolored wings which complemented his handsome face, elegantly mysterious silver hair, and his suit of fluttering purple clothes. He looked inexplicably precious, like a legendary celestial immortal. Many young women fixed their gazes on his pair of wings, as well as Su Yu himself. They expressed surprise and praised him repeatedly. Only a hardened and steady male disciple was able to discern a key point and commented on it in disbelief. His speed was so fast, he already exceeded the first-level Holy King and reached the second-level Holy King. How did he get those wings? Could it be from a remnant volume of a legacy-level cultivation technique? Asked someone else. Are you saying he could have 2 remnant volumes of legacy-level cultivation techniques? Where exactly did Su Yu come from? Some of the inner sanctum disciples are not able to take on 2 volumes of legacy-level cultivation techniques. Boom! Su Yu nimbly landed with one foot on Yuan Hu's chest. Pop. The force of the impact caused Yuan Hu to cough up a mouthful of blood. A pair of cool eyes looked down at him. You called me an ant when in fact you are not qualified to even look up to me. Take back your so-called arrogance. Su Yu demanded coolly as he used his toe to roll Yuan Hu off the bridge. Su Yu wins, the referee announced. The spectators were silent. The newly appointed inner sanctum disciple Yuan Hu had unexpectedly been defeated by Su Yu, the newly appointed disciple from outside of the sanctum. The two of them were of similar ages, had entered the faction together and participated in the faction's formal contest, and had collided in the arena at the same time. The result was so startling. Yuan Hu of the inner sanctum was no match for Su Yu from outside of the sanctum. Yuan Hu, who had been so demeaning, was instead stepped on by Su Yu, the person he viewed as an ant. Having quietly watched everything, Xuanhuan dashed over to check on Yuan Hu's injuries. He glared coolly at Su Yu. Very well, Cao, made an error of judgment. You were stronger than Lu Guang after all. Xuanhuan looked icy. Su Yu shot him a chilly look. This was the man Xiana was to be forced to marry. You have always lacked foresight. Your judgment is lacking, as is your attitude. Su Yu's eyes were cold. Xuanhuan had grabbed hold of Yuan Hu and was about to leave. After hearing Su Yu, he turned his head back and sneered, when you are qualified to enter the inner sanctum, then we can talk again. My acknowledgement is a handout in and of itself. Swish. He left in a flash, leaving only the echo of his contemptuous words. As a powerful dragon realm disciple of the inner sanctum, Xuanhuan was elusive and mysterious. Indeed, not everyone had the privilege to speak with him. At least for the present moment, Su Yu was not entitled to speak to Xuanhuan. Zhao Waksi stood with his arms folded and appraised Su Yu admiringly. He takes on 2 volumes of legacy-level cultivation techniques, his holy decree is transcendent, and he makes quite a good opponent. It's a pity, my current enemy is still Sun Tianyang. With these words, his gaze abruptly turned to Sun Tianyang. Sun Tianyang was Zhao Waxi's enemy. Though Su Yu was strong, he was still a tier lower than Sun Tianyang. The next battle is Zhao Waksi versus Zhaolongyang. All the spectators' spirits were raised. Of the 3 heavenly kings from outside of the sanctum, the first heavenly king Zhao Waksi and the second heavenly king Zhaolongyang were going to finally collide. Whoosh! The 2 men darted to the middle layer of the bridge. The section's spiritual energy was 6 times more than the outside world's. Zhao Waksi stood with his hands behind his back and he lightly nodded his head. It has been a year since we last exchanged blows. I don't know how much you've progressed. Give me your best shot and I can give you a pointer or 2. These remarks sounded self-important. Any ordinary person who heard it would certainly feel the harsh intention meant for the proud Zhaolongyang. However, surprisingly, Zhaolongyang actually restrained the ferocity in his brutish face. He reverently and respectfully cupped his fists in appreciation. Many thanks to Big Brother Waksi for your help. Please do not hesitate to advise me. The spectators from outside of the sanctum felt that Zhao Waksi had not acted self-important. Outside of the sanctum, Zhao Waksi was considered an invincible legend. Many people believed it was unfair that Zhao Waksi had stayed outside of the sanctum and he was truly a talent who had been wronged. His powerful insight and ability were not bad, he was only barely below the inner sanctum standard. Whether it was his ability or character, Zhao Waksi was someone whom people from outside of the sanctum held in high esteem. Cloud parting ghost hands. Zhaolongyang made his move. He moved his hands around, overlapped his palms, and turned them over. His movement was very fast, like wings violently flapping. The crowd clearly saw Zhaolongyang turn his wrists, but they could not see his palms. They could only feel a boundless formidable force gathered within his ghost palms as if the force was parting the clouds to see the bright moon. It was a majestic momentum. Bang! The ghost palms came attacking, and with one hand behind his back, Zhao Waksi extended one hand to duel with Zhaolongyang. Boom! Crackle! Zhao Waksi was clearly light and deft, and he had not used his cultivation technique yet. He easily deflected Zhaolongyang's moves. Even the crowd could see Zhaolongyang was straining. He was no match for him. Finally, 10 moves later, Zhaolongyang was lightly beaten back by Zhao Waksi's one palm. Zhaolongyang smiled wryly. Last year I lost to big brother Waksi within 10 moves, this year is the same. Zhao Waksi shook his head lightly. You're proficient in your palm technique and your level of maturity is extremely high. Your cloud-parting ghost hands technique has already reached its pinnacle. Compared to last year, you have shown great progress. Your shortcoming was that your body was stiff, and your body variations were not able to follow your palm momentum with ease. The result was, when your body was advancing or retreating, there was a gap in your palm's movement. Therefore you were defeated. Feeling enlightened, Zhaolongyang gratefully bowed. Many thanks to big brother Waksi. The disciples from outside of the sanctum were pleased and envious at the same time. To be able to receive Zhao Waksi's personal guidance, Zhaolongyang would be even stronger next year. Next battle is Zhaolongyang versus Su Yu. Swish. Su Yu used his icy divine wings to fly up in the air and land on the second bridge. He felt the spiritual energy was 6 times more than the outside world's, as well as the powerful chill. He felt exceptionally at ease. What mildly pleased him was the bottleneck in his cultivation base was ready to blow. He could break through any time. To someone like Su Yu who was going to break through any time, the spiritual energy of this place was beneficial and infinite. Zhaolongyang grinned. His brutish face looked ferocious. Although I'm thankful to you for helping me teach that disdainful trash, Xuanhuan, a lesson, I will not go easy on you. It's a fair fight. There's no need for you to go easy on me, Su Yu lightly said. As a second-level Holy King, Zhaolongyang was an opponent with the highest cultivation base that Su Yu had ever encountered. Zhaolongyang took a few deep breaths to calm his charged-up inner strength from the battle just now. His ruthless eyes sized up Su Yu and a hint of ridicule teased the corners of his mouth. It seems you are very confident. Overcoming difficulties along the way and skipping right to the next challenge gave you an ego boost. Su Yu closed his eyes, quietly waiting for Zhaolongyang to have enough rest. When he did not receive a response, Zhaolongyang's eyes flared. He bared his teeth and grinned. Don't tell me, just because I was defeated by Zhao Waksi, you despise me now. Su Yu closed his eyes. I'm just giving you enough time to rest to avoid having an unfair advantage in the fight. An unfair advantage? Ha ha, you really think too highly of yourself. Zhaolongyang guffawed angrily. Let's start the fight. I only used up a little energy. I want to see where you get your confidence from. Zhaolongyang inwardly sneered. He had deduced that during Su Yu's duel with Jiangming, he had held something back, but he revealed it when he fought against Xuanhuan. His 2 volumes of deity-level cultivation techniques were indeed astounding. Unfortunately, those were all Su Yu had. Zhaolongyang's realm would absolutely crush Su Yu. He was doomed to fail at his hands. Su Yu nodded. If that's the case, please make your move. Good. I want to see what abilities you have that allow you to be so unruly and arrogant. Zhaolongyang growled. Cloud-parting ghost hands. After receiving Zhao Waksi's advice, Zhaolongyang obviously paid attention to his body's drawbacks. His moves were more fluid. Like parting the clouds to see the moon, he charged towards Su Yu with an airtight formation of his ghost palms move. Su Yu's calmly looked and deftly made his move. I'm not arrogant, you're not my opponent. I can defeat you with one move, Su Yu coolly said. A violet lotus quietly rotated within his palm. It was exquisite and enchanting. Purple Star Thunderbolt, Su Yu softly chanted. He used the same move, but his accumulative destructive force was far more than the battle with Jiangming. His power had increased by about 30% or so. That crackling thunder flames and the destructive force caused the sneering Zhaolongyang to suddenly turn aghast. But it was already too late for him to dodge. Boom! An exceptional roar shook the 10,000 people arena. The purple lightning flooded the sky and earth. An unprecedented dust storm blew in all directions. The earth-shattering scene shook everyone to the core. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 120. The strongest opponent yet. Dust and smoke filled the whole sky, obscuring the daylight. It was hard to make out the situation inside the dust and smoke. Plop. A muffled sound of something falling came from above the cold lake. The smoke and dust gradually dissipated, and the surroundings gradually cleared. A shocking scene emerged. With all his clothes in tatters, Zhaolongyang's entire body was covered with blood. He had fallen to the ground and was half conscious. Had the second-level upper-tier Holy King suffered the same defeat at the hands of Su Yu? Everyone had a startled, shocked, or incredulous look. The first-level upper-tier Holy King had defeated the second-level upper-tier Holy King with one move. He had exceeded one whole level. Exactly how strong was Su Yu? The spectators stared at the silver-haired, purple-clad figure and felt they were looking at a haughty invincible god of war. Su Yu looked breathtaking as he walked off the bridge. Zhao Waksi's fighting intent increased a little in his eyes. He smiled and nodded, "Not bad. After the Fallen Star contest, I look forward to fighting you." Although Su Yu was strong, he still did not surpass Sun Tianyang's qualifications. In this battle, Sun Tianyang was the strongest opponent yet. He glanced sideways at a 15-year-old young man. With his lean build, he was slightly bigger than Su Yu and had long and narrow cheeks. Clearly, he was still a youth, but he had deep and sunken eyes with a hooked nose. Around him, there was an air of malice that seemed incongruent with his age. His icy eyes coolly sized up Su Yu. After a moment, he slowly turned his gaze back and roughly commented, "Your overall ability relies on powerful cultivation techniques. You lack physical training, so your achievement is limited. You can only be considered ordinary." Zhao Waksi was astounded. Su Yu is considered ordinary. Regardless of his movement techniques, his attacks were top-rate. All in all, he had reached the standard to fight beyond his level. How could he use the word ordinary to describe him? But shortly after, he felt calm. Sun Tianyang was the Great Elder's disciple, and Yuan who was the 10th Elder's disciple. The Great Elder was the 10th Elder's master. Sun Tianyang and the 10th Elder were of the same status in terms of the social hierarchy, which made him Yuan Hu's uncle master. No wonder Sun Tianyang could be deliberately demeaning and prejudiced, and naturally, he was unable to give a fair comment. The next battle is Zhao Waksi against Sun Tianyang. Zhao Waksi's eyes had a look of intense fighting intent as he gave his body a shake and laughed, "Ha ha. Good. Sun Tianyang, at last, I will fight you. Since you're from the inner sanctum, I want to see how strong you are." There was a fighting intent in his words, and also his grievance towards the inner sanctum and his unwillingness to concede. They were both second-level peak Holy Kings, so what did Zhao Waksi lack? Sun Tianyang looked over indifferently. He spoke evenly, "What a meaningless contest this has been. If it weren't for my master's command, I would not have taken part." Why? Zhao Waksi felt unconvinced. "Because there are no opponents for me," Sun Tianyang snappishly croaked. Clearly, Zhao Waksi was within his sight. But Sun Tianyang's gaze seemed to look through him as if he could only see the clouds on the horizon and not see the person in front of him. His disrespectful, standoffish pride and conceit disturbed Zhao Waksi's serene mentality. Clenching his fists, Zhao Waksi's mind boiled. He took a few deep breaths to compose himself, and briskly smiled, "I will take things as they come, make your move as you wish. Zhao will go along with it." Sun Tianyang was slightly startled. After a while, he slowly nodded, "As I wish. All right, I'll do as I wish. Shoot for the moon." Sun Tianyang stood with one hand behind his back and simply extended his finger. There was a faint halo around his fingertip, like a starlight in the night sky. He pointed repeatedly, and his gesture looked like many bright specks of stars dotting the starry sky. It looked more like a heavenly finger was plucking the stars. His force was like a rainbow stunning the heavens. Zhao Waksi looked focused and properly made his move for the first time. Magic Sea Dragon. Both his palms glided away from his chest and drew a yin-yang tai chi diagram above his head. The momentum of his palm was unpredictable and changeable, and harmonizing hardness and softness. Boom! Suddenly, one finger and two palms collided. Crack! A crisp cracking sound like shattering jade was distinctly heard. A violent wave of energy blasted out in all directions. It was not any weaker than Su Yu's purple star thunderbolt. With the lake just 10 feet away, the azure water was rolling with great waves during the battle. Zhao Waksi looked shocked and felt rather strained, using all his strength. How similar was this scene to his battle with Zhaolongyang? Except the situation was reversed. His face-off with Sun Tianyang was like Zhaolongyang facing him. The need for admiration and sense of being unsurpassed made him breathless. It definitely deserved to be called a deity-level cultivation technique from the first family of the 100 vassal clans. The power of the shoot for the moon technique is resisting a true legacy-level cultivation technique. In some inconspicuous corner of the spectator stand, several 20 or so young men and women wearing the Luyun coat of arms around their torsos were quietly watching. The Luyun coat of arms could only be worn around the waist of the inner sanctum disciples. The man who had spoken was a 7th-level holy king. He was only a step away from reaching the legendary dragon realm. Standing beside this person was a young woman with a charming and graceful appearance and a beautiful countenance, but her icy temperament made her seem standoffish, cold, and detached. After hearing his words, the icy beauty gently shook her small head. No matter how powerful his deity-level cultivation technique is, he's still unable to transcend from the restriction of a mortal-level cultivation technique. In the end, he cannot reach the power of a legacy-level cultivation technique. It should be said, this great elder's disciple's powerful insight is excellent. He uses the comprehension of his holy decree and merges it with the deity-level cultivation technique, for the power to be so great. Senior Sister Mo Wu's acumen is enlightening. I've heard rumors that Sun Tianyang's powerful insight is extraordinary and he is prized by the great elder. It is said he has already begun to cultivate a true legacy-level cultivation technique, said a junior sister beside her who was exceptionally reverent of the icy beauty. The icy beauty looked anxious. The great elder and the 10th elder, one a master and the other a disciple. Both hold the 2 seats of the faction's 10 great factions. Every accepted disciple of theirs is also extraordinary. As time goes by, a day will come when the Lixian faction may have to change its owner. Having faced Sun Tianyang, Zhao Waksi felt horrified. He was now aware of the huge disparity between the two of them. After fighting for a short while, Sun Tianyang sighed with disappointment. Sure enough, this is a meaningless contest. Let's just end this now. His palm flipped around. Suddenly a resplendent star-plucking power struck outward. Zhao Waxi's yin-yang tai chi diagram was unexpectedly fractured. Sun Tianyang simply pointed his finger and aimed at his chest. But, suddenly, it was as if a huge ship had collided with him and knocked him flying into the icy azure lake. Everyone was silent. He was also a 2nd-level peak holy king, but the disparity between the two was so unexpectedly huge. The crowd looked at Sun Tianyang, their eyes filled with deep horror. Sun Tianyang was the most powerful newly appointed disciple of the inner sanctum. His one finger could subjugate everyone from outside of the sanctum. Coolly drawing his finger back, Sun Tianyang strode off without an expression. The referee swallowed a little. Sun Tianyang wins. The last battle is Sun Tianyang versus Su Yu. Sun Tianyang walked away to leave as if he had not heard the announcement. The referee dared not offend Sun Tianyang. He politely reminded Sun Tianyang, the contest is not finished yet. Please return to the lake. Sun Tianyang did not even turn his head and continued to walk away with his hands behind his back. It's a meaningless contest, there's no need to compete anymore. But, the referee broke out in cold sweat. Sun Tianyang was definitely the great elder's disciple for sure. His unbridled arrogance could not be compared to ordinary people. Such a solemn faction competition, and yet Sun Tianyang dared to turn and leave so abruptly. Perhaps after this incident, no one would dare hold him responsible. Swish. A piercing sound broke the silence of the arena. A purple-clad, silver-haired figure landed on the 3rd bridge without hesitation. Such an intense spiritual energy. Su Yu lightly breathed in. His cultivation base vibrated even more violently. There were oncoming signs of a breakthrough. The energy on the third bridge was 10 times the spiritual energy of the outside world. Together with the intense chill, Su Yu felt completely at ease. It's a pity that my opponent has run away and I have the unfair advantage in this contest. Su Yu evenly said. A drifting sound gently glided from the cold lake's surface. Sun Tianyang came to a stop and icily said without turning his head, I'm not running away, it's just that you're not qualified enough for me to make a move. Not staying to fight means you're running away, what's there to explain? Referee, please quickly announce it. Su Yu felt a little regretful in his heart. The spiritual energy of this area was rich, it would be difficult to encounter such energy in the future. Unfortunately, he could not stay here any longer with the end of the competition. The referee slightly nodded. Su Yu. Whoosh. A powerful wave swept in front of the referee. Fast as the speed of light and difficult to catch sight of, he darted onto the cold lake's third bridge. His hoarse growl echoed above the cold lake. Disgusting noise. Swish. Sun Tianyang stood opposite Su Yu, with his hand behind his back and malice in his eyes. He looked deeply bored. Though a fly may be small, if it's not dead, it's extremely irritating. Make your move. Let's get this fight over with now. You have 2 chances to make your move. Sun Tianyang growled. So far, Su Yu had revealed 2 of his powerful moves. He gave Su Yu 2 chances to absolutely crush and beat him. Otherwise, to the haughty Sun Tianyang, leaving Su Yu with not even a chance to make a move would be unfair. Su Yu was calm and not ruffled. Good. Let's get this fight over with. Without another word, Su Yu decisively made his shot. Ice and Thunder Feast. Su Yu's fingertips teamed with the violet rays as ice and thunder melded together. They turned into a violet-white light, which was like an obliterating divine glow. Bang! The beam was extremely fast, and it shot straight towards Sun Tianyang's chest. However, Sun Tianyang, who stood with one hand behind him, merely extended his hand and raised his palm to grab it. Aha! The destructive and powerful beam was extinguished within the grasp of his palm. Child's play. What else have you got? Better use it as soon as possible. Sun Tianyang coldly chided Su Yu. He did not even bother to look up. However, without waiting for him to finish, a spinning violet lotus struck. The purple star thunderbolt had followed the ice and thunder feast closely. Sun Tianyang was caught off guard. He slightly took a step back and extended his finger. Shoot for the moon. Pop, pop, pop. His repeated star points poked several cracks in the violet thunder lotus. The lotus shattered into 1/10 of its full power. The thunder flames from the explosion were extinguished with a swat from Sun Tianyang's palm. For the first time, someone had cracked the purple star thunderbolt. All the spectators were extremely afraid. Sun Tianyang was unusually powerful, almost supernatural. Your 2 moves have been made, and that's all you've got. Now let's send you packing. Sun Tianyang coldly snapped as he suddenly charged towards Su Yu in a flash. With his unstoppable terrible force, and Su Yu had already exhausted all his martial arts, the battle outcome looked certain. However, Su Yu's eyes underneath his silver hair were calm as an autumn lake without even the slightest ripple. The corners of his mouth curled to a slight smile. Su Yu calmly smiled. Who told you? I only have 2 moves. What? The crowd was baffled. Could it be that Su Yu still had something hidden up his sleeves? Sun Tianyang's eyebrows slightly twitched. Suddenly he had a bad feeling. Su Yu lightly chuckled as he suddenly pulled with his finger. Aha! The sound of the explosion in the air suddenly came at Sun Tianyang from all directions. Strands of crystalline fine threads, hard to distinguish by the naked eye, had already unknowingly surrounded Sun Tianyang. Following Su Yu's wrist flick, the infinite divine ice threads, like a vast net being pulled together, had trapped Sun Tianyang within. Suddenly he felt his body being bound up. Sun Tianyang's hawkish eyes showed panic for the first time. He snarled, "The violet lotus just now, that was only a decoy." Indeed, it was. The Ice and Thunder Feast and Purple Star Thunderbolt were all moves meant to attract his attention. The real killer move was the divine ice threads wound around the Violet Lotus. After the Violet Lotus had exploded, the divine ice threads dispersed and enveloped Zhaolongyang. After all, a second-level peak Holy King was too powerful. Su Yu had no choice but to prepare. Coolly shaking his head, Su Yu's eyes were clear. There's no need for you to know. Worldly ice seal. Crack. Suddenly, the countless divine ice threads released a terrible chill. Instantly, without warning, a human-shaped iceberg appeared in front of everyone. Within the iceberg, Zhaolongyang could still move his cold eyes. Purple Star Thunderbolt. Without even waiting for the spectators to be shocked, Su Yu made another ruthless move and used his Purple Star Thunderbolt. The frozen Zhaolongyang was engulfed by splendid violet lightning. As the Violet Lotus exploded, Su Yu's pupils suddenly shrank. End of the chapter. The Divine Nine Dragon will be read in 5 chapters for every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday and Sunday. Please leave this sound novel and press subscribe, follow, and the bell so you don't miss any new clips as well. See you.